Why, hello there, children.
Hello.
Welcome
Hello.
welcome to our next episode of the podcast. I'm Rick.
I'm sexy.
I'm sexier.
I'm E-House.
No, damn it, you can't say that. He said that already.
Fuck you.
Whatever. If people have listened to the last one like they should have, they already know who we are.
And it still doesn't hurt to introduce ourselves. For those new people.
Yeah. Okay.
One person hasn't introduced themselves yet.
Yeah, one person hasn't said a goddamn word. Where are you, Rich?
I'm over here, sulking with my heart-shaped face.
With your inferior face design. Because God hates you.
Your face is inferior.
Are you gonna put up my sad face picture?
Maybe. I'm thinking about it.
You should. Definitely would work.
Mm-hmm.
Would be pretty hilarious.
Okay. E-House, start us off with the first topic.
Well, the first topic we have here is going into the gaming block, and the Alienware Alpha. I hadn't really heard anything about it until like the last week when it started getting a lot of press all of a sudden that I've seen. So what is everyone's thoughts on that?
It's a Steam box, but it's not a Steam box.
Well, yeah, that's the basic
It's a
thought.
Steam box without Steam OS, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Since, they can't make Steam OS for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Delayed again and again.
Of course. Rich, do you know anything about it? Because we don't.
It's Alienware. You're gonna pay out the butt for the name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks like the
that is
basic
true.
model here is $549. Wasn't the Steam box supposed to be priced around $300 or $400?
Yeah,
Because
it's
the
supposed to
basic
be...
models from Valve.
It was supposed to be competitive to the PS4 and the Xbox One, since the
Yeah,
whole
but-
idea was to put PC gaming into the living room, basically, in place of consoles.
Yeah, but this pricing is just ridiculous. Like,
Well,
apparently all the editions come with Payday 2, plus exclusive game items and a $100 gift card when pre-ordering. But if you're not pre-ordering, then you're kind of getting screwed on the price.
yeah. I mean, I'd say about 150 of that price is just because it says Alienware and has that little alien head on it.
Well, you know, that's what it always is with Alienware's products. If it has the little alien face on it and there's glowing lights, everyone's like, ooh, form factor, let me pay you an extra $200 or $300.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, I'm
more of
looking
that
at
crap.
it. Oh,
So, I mean,
and,
I was gonna say,
I'm sorry. Continue. Okay,
Go
well,
ahead.
I was going to say, I'm looking at it, and the specs on the base model are not very impressive. I mean, it's $550, and you're getting an i3 processor from Intel. You're getting 2 gigs of dedicated video RAM, which is, not bad. And you're getting 4 gigs of usual memory. And I don't know, like it doesn't strike me as all that impressive because I'm on an Asus laptop and I've got 16 gigs of memory. I've got 2 gigs of video RAM on a laptop GTX 660M, and I've got an i7 processor.
yeah, well, they're all 4th gen Intel CPUs, so the performance with each one is still pretty good. With the base model Alpha and then the Alpha above that one, whatever that's called, the second level, basically, they use the same processors, and all across the board they use the same graphics cards. But the only thing that really changes is the memory count. The base model has a 4 gigabyte of DDR3, I'm guessing, but the 3 higher up models have 8 gigabytes of RAM. So there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of change for the price point.
you can put an i5 into it, which I believe the highest price point for the Alien Alpha is $799. Which
Yeah, there's an
$899
and i7.
Okay, did it increase again?
Yes.
Okay.
There's 550, 700, 800, and 900, basically.
Yeah. So the 900
According-
probably has all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
According to an article on extremetech.com, it says Alienware says that the 550 model should run most games on medium.
So not an incredible powerhouse or anything, but it's going to be running games like about or maybe a little bit below console
Well, I mean, it'll have no
specifications, more or
trouble with
less.
the source engine.
It's true.
I'd say it'd probably be running about the same as consoles. I don't think they would put out a product that does not run close enough to the Xbone or the PS4 at that price point, especially since you can buy uh, the base model Xbox One without the Kinect for $200 less. I mean, that's a no-brainer. No one's going to pay $550 for that, where you can just buy an Xbox One for almost half the price.
It's true, but honestly, like, the whole Steambox idea, in my opinion, is kind of just geared toward, I don't know, like a console gamer that wants to be a PC gamer but not learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, casual, you know, because, like, you could upgrade a Steambox, couldn't you? Because it just uses normal
Most of
PC
them,
parts?
yes. I don't know about
Yeah.
the Alpha because it has that proprietary GPU in it.
Yeah, so it's like you could upgrade it, but honestly, at these prices, you could build a much higher performance gaming rig just from spare parts, basically. Like,
Yeah.
the computer I built for my friend Garrett a couple months ago it cost around $500 without, peripherals, so no controllers or anything. But it was around 500 or 550, and it can run Battlefield 4 on Ultra. So I just put like a 750 Ti, an i5 2500K, and then it's got 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that's not very expensive right now.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead,
Interestingly,
Rich.
I'm looking at this article on PC Gamer. It was published in June, written by Wes Fenlon. He says that he asked Alienware if it would be cheaper to buy the parts separately or upgrade them, and Alienware said that they didn't know.
AKA, they don't want to answer
not.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
that's
don't
what
wanna
that
tell you.
always means. But, that's just more Alienware branding stuff, like, oh, we're not going to tell you it's cheaper to make it yourself.
Well, to be fair,
Wink, wink.
what company would?
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty silly business practice, but at the same time...
That's like saying, like, LaRue or KAC is like, oh yeah, it'd be cheaper to build your own AR-15. Like, they're not going to do that. No one's going to do that. They want your money.
And that's the nature of capitalism. I mean, my day job is marketing, and I'll tell you something. I try to not be a dick with marketing, but you're not going to tell your customer, oh, by the way, you could do this better elsewhere.
Yeah, that
of course
wouldn't be very good for sales.
No, instead you try to introduce the advantages of doing things your way. And I guess the advantage of this is that unlike building your own PC, this is plug and play with a dedicated gaming machine, but everyone has a friend who builds gaming PCs.
Pretty much. Nowadays, especially, it's gotten much easier.
It's never been easier to build a gaming PC. So I look at these prices and I'm like, but why would you have this separately over a standard computer? Like, you could even buy an Asus. Like, take the amount of money an Alienware Alpha would cost, add that on to what you would normally pay for a computer that you would want to use, and you could get, like, I mean, again, even if you wanted to go the pre-built route, you could get an Asus, or you could, get something from BuyPower.
Yeah, iBuyPower is a pretty good website for making custom PCs, but it's just like I was saying earlier. It's like if you have any idea how to build computers, the Steambox as a concept doesn't need to exist. They're just putting it out there as something for console gamers wanting to get the PC experience. Maybe.
And I do think there's a market for that, and obviously some market analysts agree with that.
Well, yes, there is.
I don't know if
console market exists for a reason.
I don't know if I'd go that far and say it's for them wanting to get the PC game experience. I think it'd probably be, hey, here's your introduction to PC gaming. To get the PC gaming experience, you really need to have a decent setup, not a pseudo Steam box like the Alpha is.
What is the PC gaming experience, quote unquote? What is that?
I would argue that the big difference with PC gaming is the increased performance of many games. Like, you have higher resolution options, you have better graphical settings in general, and I would argue a huge part of the PC gaming experience, which I hope is compatible with the Alpha, it probably will be, I mean, why wouldn't it be, is mods.
Yeah, it should support mods, especially if it's using a Steam operating system, because you should be able to use the Steam Workshop with that.
The Alpha doesn't use Steam operating system. Steam operating system isn't out yet.
Oh, right. It uses
But
Windows
even so, if you
8.1.
download
But even
Steam
still,
onto
with
it,
Windows 8.1,
then yeah.
if you're running Steam, you can use the workshop, and that's a baseline for modding
And I think
games.
that's a huge thing, because there's a lot of mods that add a lot of content to some games. I mean, like, there's
especially...
I was going to say, like, there's Moonpath to Elsewhere for Skyrim. There's all... I mean, you could just buy the whole thing for Skyrim mods alone and practically die in front of your television.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, as my main example would be Skyrim. Fallout, does Fallout run through
Fallout
Steam?
runs through Steam.
Or does it have its own client?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then obviously there's workshop stuff for that too. It's just you can get hours and hours and hours of extra content just through the Steam workshop alone. And then if you happen to use Nexus mods or something, there's even more on there. So it's just, if you have Steam working with Windows, or you're just using Windows and then you have Steam running through that, your modding abilities for that game and most games is pretty much endless.
And that was the other thing too, is, you know, with mods, like, it used to be that mods were fairly, like, I mean, they weren't like crazy complicated, but they were kind of intimidating. But now with things...
Yeah, there was a little bit of a skill wall, but now most things go with installers.
You know, the Nexus and the Steam Workshop and, you know, the installers and the built-in mod support, it's never been easier to mod a game. I mean, you have 12-year-olds modding their Minecraft files because it's just that easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's been definitely a design consideration in more modern games, for sure.
I would definitely say, that modding is probably the largest majority of the quote-unquote PC gaming experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rich, since you asked it, what do you think the PC gaming experience is? A hard question to answer.
You caught me off guard. I didn't expect to be involved in this.
That's because you were so quiet, I had to turn around on you. I'm like a fucking teacher, man. Minus
You're like
the
Doug Marcaida of questions.
Just don't tell us to find groups for our next project, because that'll find me.
Okay. I'll let you off the hook this time.
Mods. Definitely mods.
Yeah.
So I guess we all agree on that.
For me, a big part of it is obviously the input device, because I've used pretty much every console except for this current generation with the Xbone and the PS4 and the Wii U, if you consider that this generation. But I have never used a control scheme that's really kind of paralleled using a mouse and keyboard. So that's a huge part of the experience for me.
Yeah, the mouse and keyboard really does allow you a lot more freedom, especially as you get into more complex games. But a controller can definitely benefit. I actually like controllers. For a lot of games, I prefer controllers, especially these days with some of the ports that are being done for PCs. Like, your control scheme on mouse and keyboard can be messed up. Like, Rainbow Six Vegas 2 on PC is horrendous.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if I'm playing... Well, I was going to use the example of Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 5, but pretty much if I'm playing any console port on computer, I'm using a 360 gamepad. So if it's built for computer and the control scheme makes sense, then yeah, I'm going to use a keyboard and mouse. But if it's like a game that I'm playing for nostalgia, or a game that's obviously built around a controller and they just threw on macros for a keyboard as an afterthought, then I'm probably going to be using a controller.
Okay, here's a question. What is the worst PC port you guys have ever played?
Final Fantasy 13. Jesus Christ, that thing is terrible.
I've never experienced that.
It. Holy hell, that was bad.
I'm looking at my Steam list to try to find it. I own it right now, and it's installed.
You own 13?
It's tricky for me because I got into PC gaming like only a few years ago, and I haven't bought a lot of games that I think suck. But if I had to rank the worst one, I would probably rank the original Resident Evil 4 port. Yeah, the non-HD edition was god-awful. Holy shit.
Yeah, you can tell how bad it was by how massive the modding community is. because they were like, holy shit, this game's broken. And when they finally rolled out an HD patch for it, like the community doing that, they released Resident Evil 4 HD. So that's the one I bought. I was just like, screw it. It was only like $5 more than Resident Evil 4 standard at that point. But I found my example. I don't know if you guys ever played this, but it's called Obscure, and it was for the PlayStation 2.
Nope.
Never?
I've heard of it, but never played it either. I do remember hearing about it.
It's a survival horror game where you play as like high school students, and honestly, it was a really garbage game to begin with, but it's just one of the original like survival horror games I played. On PlayStation 2, it was great, but on PC, okay, so the game is engineered to have co-op, right? It works really well with two people sitting at a TV with a PS2 controller in each person's hand playing the game. But on PC, they did kind of retain the fact that you can only do local co-op, but you can only use one controller with it at a time. So one person's using a gamepad and the other's using a keyboard and mouse. Now, for this game, you want to be using a controller. It is not good with a keyboard and mouse. It's bad. And on top of that, the game crashes every 10 minutes if you're running like Windows 7 or later. So you have to run it in compatibility mode. And if you don't know anything about using a PC, then that's kind of a hard thing to do. So
the other worst port I ever played was definitely Rainbow Six Vegas 2. Like, functionally, in terms of the engine, it was fine, but goddamn the control scheme.
Yeah, I got that for Steam when you guys were talking about your totally legit version that you were playing, and I was really disappointed by the fact that I can't run this game for more than like 5 or 6 minutes without it having some kind of hard
Really?
crash.
I didn't have crashes when I was playing it. And you know, I've got the Steam version
Yeah,
too.
It either like literally crashes, like the game closes itself, or it freezes.
Huh. I don't know then.
It's just unplayable. And it doesn't even have my native resolution. The resolution on my main monitor is 1600 by 900, and it doesn't seem to support that unless I just can't find the option or something like that.
Well, that's some bullshit.
So, it is, because I really liked Rainbow Six Vegas and Vegas 2 for the Xbox 360, so I was really looking forward to playing it, but yeah.
So, going to what I was talking about with Final Fantasy, they have no graphics options. It is locked at 720p. Yeah, no graphics options. It's locked at 720p, and it's locked at 30 frames a second. It's literally the base definition of a console port. It is taken directly from 360 and PS3 and moved to PC. No changes made, no nothing.
Was it 30 FPS on PS3? I thought it was 60.
Yeah, no, it's 60 outside of combat and 30 inside combat. Which
that's what I'm remembering.
Outside of combat, you're literally just walking around, so that really has no frame of reference.
Yeah, just walking down a hallway.
Walking down a linear corridor is serious business.
Walking down a linear corridor is lineage gameplay from Final Fantasy. Can't fuck with that.
Final Fantasy 13, after I think it was like 20 or so hours, they stepped away from that.
Okay, but I'm going to quote Yahtzee here.
Gave you a little more
you could put your hand on an oven for 20 hours, and sure, you'll have stopped feeling the pain, but you'll have done serious damage to yourself.
You don't play a Final Fantasy game to play 20 hours. You play a Call of Duty game for that.
Well, you can say that, but the campaign of Final Fantasy 13 is about 20 to 40 hours.
Yeah.
If you're doing everything. So you play JRPGs for a long time.
Tell you what,
normally. They don't
I play a game to have fun, and if the first half of it is not fun, then I do not like the game.
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that nobody wants to have to suffer through 20 hours of bullshit.
I love how you almost said of story and then just said of bullshit.
That might have almost
happened. I heard it happen.
Perhaps. Bullshit.
Oh, boy.
Speaking of bullshit, Ubisoft just released Assassin's Creed Unity today. Already, it has gotten nothing but terrible reviews because it's almost
I have heard from a
unplayable
lot
right
of people that it is very buggy.
It's extremely buggy, and and for whatever reason on Uplay, it doesn't download the full game. It downloads about 30% of it, and then trickle downloads, for lack of a better term. Um, the
So
other
the speed just gets absolutely throttled.
I was at 6.5 kilobytes a second earlier.
Jesus Christ! Yeah. Welcome to 1992.
Yeah, right. I'm like, okay, whatever. But then I was reading on their forums, people are saying that if you started playing it during the download, it broke your game. You had to uninstall and go through it again. Because about 30%-ish, they allow you to start playing it.
Okay, so it does the same thing that like Battle.net's installer does, where there's the playable, where it doesn't load all the textures properly, and then there's the actual full install.
But,
okay.
Yeah, instead of being like a terrible quality like visuals, the actual game is literally broken.
So it's just missing whole parts of the program and can't function.
Yeah. Like right now I am at 2.8 kilobytes a second.
Wow.
I wonder if that's just because there's so many people downloading it.
It has to be. I've got a net speed of at least 2 to 3 megabytes a second download. At least.
Oh, well, God, hopefully.
And then that's the funny part is people always talk about DRM and how the biggest problem with DRM, and especially when the DRM is through your own download servers as well with Uplay, how the biggest problem is when the servers are down, all your players are fucked.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. Like the entire first month or so that Diablo 3 was out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Those are dark times.
And then the other thing to consider is that Diablo 3, if people want to go back and play that in a few years, God forbid they take the servers down for whatever reason.
Yeah, you have to play that game online. There's no, like...
Yeah.
There's no, like bullshit offline mode like there was for SimCity.
Yeah, it's the same issue that, shit. There's another game that did that. It was entirely online, and you literally could not play it. And they had
Star Wars Galaxies?
Yes.
Yep.
They had to take
all I remember about Star Wars Galaxy, because I never played it, is an article in a Game Informer magazine where they were talking about in the last 5 minutes, everybody like got onto this server on like Kashyyyk and looked at the stars while the server shut down. And I was like, God, that is like the saddest fucking thing that's ever happened in a video game.
That's kind of sad, but kind of like that almost like hair-raising, like intense kind of idea of everyone on the server went there, hung out together, and just watched the stars. Like,
yeah, and it's really like
see that kind of stuff happen anymore.
And I know they had to, like, they apparently shut down the servers for Knights of the Old Republic, or the Old Republic, or whatever they called their
Star Wars: The Old
MMO
Republic
that came out. But yeah, but it's like if you have a user base that big, you can't delegate it to some other server cluster and then just start new servers for your new game. You're fucking LucasArts. How can you not afford that?
Well, it's a matter of whether or not it's profitable. I mean, if they're not making money on it actively, then there's no reason for them to do it.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
They were still making money off of it, probably just not enough.
And that's the thing, problem. Is like, well, we're not making enough money on this, so we need to stop.
Yeah, because it was still a monthly paid subscription game. It was never free at any point, which is weird.
I seem to remember the Old Republic going free to play.
No, the Old Republic did. Galaxies didn't.
Yeah.
So they were still turning a pretty good profit on Galaxies just out of user fees, like microtransactions and membership fees. But then they shut that all down for the Old Republic. The Old Republic fucking fails super hard because it sucks and it runs like shit. And then they're like, okay, it's free. Have fun. It's like, wow, fuck you, everybody who still like Galaxies.
Dude, that's the games industry that's the game industry in general. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they also launched that game during the point where like free to play as a market was just starting to evolve. So they probably figured, oh, we can just cash in on this later, but then they kind of realized that people don't really play the Old Republic like hardcore like they wanted them to.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot of money to be made off of that.
Well, I played it for a little while. I had some coworkers who wanted me to play it with them. I played it for a little bit, and it was cool and all. It was really awesome to play as myself, as I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. It was really cool to almost live in that galaxy, but the gameplay was just the exact same MMO structure as everything else. Go here, get this many things. Go there, kill this many things.
It's what's called a control board MMO, which is basically just, all your controls are laid out in front of you on the screen, and then just really generic structure, basically.
Yep.
And when I played it, that's why I didn't really like it. It was just, I felt like, if I'm going to be playing this, why aren't I just putting my time into, like, World of Warcraft or something I could actually get invested in?
I'm a lonely bastard, and I don't like MMOs.
So,
well,
yeah.
Not that there's anything like deathly wrong with them. I don't know. I don't tend to find myself getting invested in them.
Yeah, you just like your single player.
I like having my own experience of being the oldest special one in the video game.
That right
that's
there
that's a way to play.
Something on there. For the Old Republic, if you weren't a subscription, really, because it was free to play, but if you weren't subscription, after a certain level, you gained half experience. You didn't have access to some pretty key features, and it really put a huge block on what you could do in the game.
They had to give players some incentive to pay for a subscription fee.
But the thing is, if
pay to play, more like
it was pay to play. It was not free to play like they said it was. It was pay to play because nobody wants to sit there and have to farm the same stuff twice as long because you're getting half experience.
Did the XP ever have a hard cutoff?
Like as
you
in
just
a level
stopped
cap
getting XP at one point?
For
free players, I mean.
Not that I got to, because I got bored of the half experience before I got to any sort of point where that might have.
So you basically got to eat shit.
So theoretically, you could have just kept leveling up off that, but
it
just
could
takes
have.
longer.
It took twice as long. So
it's not like a functional failure in the game, like you can't play it anymore. It's just your experience now takes 5 times as long.
Yeah, and nobody wants to do that, really.
No, that sucks.
Even the MMO grind, normal MMO grinds, nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what can you do? It's free, guys.
Not playing.
Free content.
You can do.
Free content can never be bad.
You can't criticize free content. That's like how you can't criticize early access games.
Well, that's why you can't criticize Rooster Teeth on YouTube. It's free content.
I don't know.
Oh. Sorry, I went to eat dinner. Are we still talking about video games?
God fucking damn it, Rich.
we just finished with the Old Republic.
Wait,
I think we might be done with that.
Wait. Can I bring up one more topic?
No, you went to dinner. And didn't bring any of us anything.
Are you mad because I didn't take you out?
Yes.
Okay. Did you guys hear about the latest Grand Theft Auto San Andreas patch on Steam?
Yeah.
How it deleted most of the music because they lost rights to it.
Oh,
That shit
yeah,
was
I
hilarious.
heard about that.
I just don't see why people are getting so up in arms about it, because if it's on PC, one of the main reasons you will get that game on PC is because of the modding community. You can put in custom music. It's not hard.
I think there's a principle behind it. They paid for a game, and then they had content taken away in a patch as opposed to having content added.
That is definitely some bullshit.
Like that kind of thing would
go ahead.
Shut up.
Go.
That kind of thing would not happen on the console version because it's impossible for it to happen.
So
I heard that it was impossible.
It costs to do patches on console versions. That's why Payday 2 for the console version is still running one of the first build or two. Because when you put out a new IP, especially with Microsoft, you only get 1 or 2 free patches, so you better make them count.
Yeah, that's the same reason why like Payday on console never
It's
got
like why
updated.
Battlefield only ever has
Just costs
patches
too
when
much
there's
money.
DLC.
Yeah, and like they absolutely are not cheap fees either. It's like in the order of thousands of
It's
dollars
tens
to
of
upload a
thousands of
patch.
dollars.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a rather large chunk of the earnings you're gonna make off of patching the game.
And
So-
that's why PC gaming is better.
The PC gaming
Yeah.
experience, everybody.
Oh boy.
Having your content patched
And
out.
then being able to mod it back
Yep.
in, because fuck you, Rockstar.
You
I
don't
heard
even need
that
to mod it back in. You just play YouTube in the background.
Or just don't download
pretty
the
much.
update.
I heard that it doesn't affect hard copies though.
No,
Like
it
it
doesn't.
only affects clients. Yeah. So if you have a hard copy, you're in luck. But if you bought it through Steam or some other client, then you're kind of boned.
Also,
Oh.
there is no longer the option to opt out of updates to Steam. So you're
Oh,
Yeah, I
never
noticed
mind
that.
then.
like you have to update or you can't
God
launch the
damn it.
game anymore.
Okay.
So that's no good.
thanks, Gaben.
Oh,
Based
Lord
Gaben.
Gaben.
He is still the one true God, even if occasionally he does things that make me scratch my head. Like have shitty knives in his collection.
I'd blame the
Do
I
you
blame the
scratch your
CEO.
head with a wall?
I scratch my head with a kukri.
Not
No,
a Gerber.
not a Gerber.
what about a burger?
I was gonna say, what about a burger?
Yeah, no, not that either. Although a cheeseburger sometimes.
Cheeseburger. Yeah,
I
just
just
mush
mush
it on
on
your
my
head.
head and let the heat and the grease
grease.
do the itching.
Just like time for fries.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh, but I have to.
Okay, are we done talking about video
Yeah,
games?
I'm kind of out
Yeah, I
of things
think
to
so.
say.
Okay, should we talk about these G-code pouches since I don't think we can really say too much about
I
this.
am actually quite curious about these G-code pouches because, okay, for those of you who aren't immediately going to know what we're saying, G-code just announced a new series of magazine pouches called the Scorpion, and it's basically sandwiched Kydex with shock cord.
Yeah. And it's not in the same way as the HSGI Taco. They're not universal. They are specific for caliber.
Can
Because
you
I've
link
looked-
so I
Yes,
can
I will put a link up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll link him.
I got it.
Like they've got the Scorpion 5.56, the Scorpion 7.62, the Scorpion double stack pistol mag
Nice.
carrier, and the Scorpion single stack pistol mag carrier. That's what they've got out right now.
Yeah, so it's an idea of making a hard shell, almost a hard shell Blue Force Gear Whisper pouch, because if you read about it, it says that it's got the G-Code's kind of signature fuzz inside of it to give it a kind of a grippy feel for the mag, but it also makes it so that it's a much quieter pull from the pouch than just straight Kydex.
How many decibels are we talking?
Enough that they had to comment about it.
More like enough that they
So-
wanted to comment about it.
That too.
Yeah, just the mention of that fuzz stuff kind of makes me think that these are made more for range ninjas than,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, of
like
course
actual
they are.
soldiers.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
want to
mean,
scratch up my PMags.
And I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of G-Code to begin with. I mean, I understand they probably have a ridiculous amount of orders per day, but waiting 6 to 8 weeks for a couple pieces of Kydex sandwiched together kind of is a little sad.
Yeah,
I don't know. If
Kydex
I'm-
isn't.
Because I'm
especially
going on,
hard to
I'm going
mold.
on 3 weeks, and all I've heard is, "Hey, we're still working on your order. Don't worry, we'll let you know when it's done."
from an
And
airsoft perspective, if I'm reloading, that probably means I've been shooting. And if I've been shooting, they probably know where I am, so I'm not concerned about how quiet I
Yes.
can reload.
Well,
yes,
And that's honestly probably a real combat like idea about it too. I guess it would depend on the range you're
I
at
mean,
though.
I can't really comment on their use in combat, obviously, because I've never been there and probably will never be there. But I can say from my perspective, the biggest problem I see with the G-Code Scorpion is that, one, I don't know, is there a waiting period for these? Because,
more than
yeah, because if
likely.
there's a waiting period for these, then that is a huge disadvantage because it's $28 for one rifle mag pouch. And at that price range, and if there's a waiting period, I think they're unsuccessfully trying to compete with the taco. I mean, I have a couple HSGI tacos, and they're expensive pouches.
These things are in a completely different range than the tacos. They're in a completely different ball field, I would say.
How so?
As in over or under.
I would put tacos before these.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm asking myself, what do these accomplish that the taco doesn't?
Absolutely
Or
nothing.
many other Kydex magazine holsters for that.
Well, not only that, these aren't modular like the tacos are. You can't put a 7.62 mag in a 5.56 Scorpion. You can't.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're specifically
They're-
molded for
Yeah,
caliber.
they're specific. Yeah. So there's between and for the same price as a taco. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
and you can get it in a week instead of in a couple months.
Yeah. Like, there's really 0 point for it, and I can't see personally. I can't see the what they're trying
And
to
you
go
can't
for
even
here.
really say that like the fuzz lining for the quiet is an advantage for these because the tacos are mostly nylon, so it's not like those make a ton of sound. And if you're really
Yeah.
concerned about, noise profile, you're probably looking at straight nylon.
And honestly, who are they manufacturing for that they go, oh, we need to be slightly quieter than a nylon or full Kydex pouch? Who is that concerned about it?
Again,
Who's
range
like
ninjas.
real life Sam Fishers that wouldn't even
Yeah.
be using this?
Yeah. Yeah. They would probably be using
Or even
tacos.
Blue Force gear.
Probably. Or shoving them in their pockets.
I will say the Blue Force Gear Whisper pouches are pretty nice. It's just basically elastic.
I have a buddy
on
who
nylon.
runs the Blue Force gear triple shingle in front of his insert on his plate carrier, and it's a really nice pouch, and it works really well.
I've got a couple of them on my HSGI Sure Grip, and for airsoft purposes, it works pretty well. It holds mags in real well, and I mean, guess
Yeah.
that's all I'm looking for on them.
Yeah, I've been running the 10 speed for about a year or so now, and I have no complaints aside from I wish they were modular, but I don't know how that would work.
The only
Yeah.
thing that I've heard about them is durability issues.
Yeah, they do kind of snag
wear out
easily.
eventually, but they're not crazy expensive, and most of the people I know who have had them for a couple of years, so
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're using them for airsoft purposes,
Yeah,
they'll probably be
yeah,
fine,
yeah.
like with most gear.
And for
But-
me, with HSGI tacos, I have 2 rifle tacos and 2 pistol tacos. And I use the rifle tacos for airsoft, and I use them for my Sega Sporter for the magazines for that, because, the 10-round magazines can be tough with pouches. But the taco pouches really work well with the 10-round Sega magazines. And I use them for real steel and
the
for
only-
airsoft, and I couldn't do that with these.
The only thing I've found that will not fit in a normal, well, I won't say not fit. It doesn't like to fit in a normal rifle HSGI taco is my 7.62 by 54R SVD mags.
Yeah, those are pretty odd shaped, though.
It's an odd enough shape that they'll go in the pouch, but they're just they're kind of not supposed to, almost.
Are there even any magazine pouches designed for SVD magazines?
An SVD Smersh, like the
Right.
the Russian.
So just
stuff.
like literally a super expensive piece of Russian kit that's
Yeah.
engineered for it. But like,
Well, the Smersh is modular in that it can switch between AK, PKM / RPK, and SVD. So I mean, it's one thing for all the Russian stuff, but Like, yeah, it's like buying a whole
I'm
new
sure
vest.
could you fit SVD
Yeah.
magazines in a like a double stack M14 pouch?
I'm not sure. The Blue Force Gear Whisper pouches I was talking about earlier. I have are the 417 pouches. So they are a little bit bigger than normal 7.62 to incorporate the little lock tabs that most
Yeah.
417 mags have. So I've been running the SVD
Oh,
mags
well, that
actually in
works.
that. The only thing is it's difficult to put them back in
Well,
once you take them out. So if you don't have like a dump pouch and you're like me and just put the mags back in the pouches, it takes a little longer than it probably wants to.
Battle uniform have many pocket use.
Did you just say? Did you just say you had the 7.62 Whisper patches?
I do.
Do AK mags fit in them?
I haven't tried because I don't run an AK right now, but I can check.
Please check for me.
I will,
yeah.
just for you, baby.
So
let
yeah,
me know.
that's definitely the biggest disadvantage with these Scorpions, though, because with my tacos, I can fit my Airsoft M14 mags, my Airsoft AR mags, my buddy's Real Steel AR mags that I borrow at the range sometimes, and I'm going to be using those for the SCR when I get one. I can fit my Real Steel Sega 10-round mags, my Airsoft AK mags. I can fit pretty much anything that literally doesn't stretch the Kydex to capacity and that isn't too small for it. And that just, the Scorpion lacks that advantage. I don't know if they're going to get any significant market share.
Yeah, they're looking at a very, very small side of the market with these. Basically, they're looking at the people who go to like Raven Concealment, Lead Farmer Inc., those kind of places that do the custom Kydex, and they're trying to market to them about hey, this thing can go on whatever you want for the custom Kydex mag holsters, or pouches, I should
I
say.
can see him having a place in like the IPSC and competitive scenes, but even then, like, just the thing that sticks out to me the most is that lining to reduce noise. It just seems so unnecessary. Like, if you're going to say it's for grippiness, that's fine, but if you're advertising it as noise reduction, it's just not needed, I guess.
Yeah.
That's just my own philosophy on it, though. Maybe you like to be quiet until you shoot your gun. Who knows?
It's for quieter baby killing.
Jesus.
Well, you got to be quiet or you're going to wake them up and they're going to start crying. And they're going to wake their parents up. So, just things you got to keep in
No,
mind.
that wouldn't matter. You've already killed the parents.
Let's change the
That's
subject
true. It depends
here.
on if you're entering through...
QNSA in 3,
Yeah,
2,
we do not need
1.
to talk about murdering babies on a gun and video game podcast. We'll have the NRA and the NSA on our ass.
Oh my god, Lord. Cars. Okay.
Now
Anyway,
trending on
Ehouse, you're the one
Facebook.
talking about a topic
All right,
change,
so let's go desperately now to the Magpup M-Lok series.
Okay.
So basically, we're just going to jump from an attempt at the success of the tacos to an attempt at the success of the
Key mod. Yeah.
key mod. Yes,
That's the
thank you.
thing I'm looking at with the M-Lok. It does not seem to operate as simply as key mod, but maybe I'm missing something.
It's kind of strange. Like, I don't know if they have, like, the cantilever mounts like a key mod does, because it just looks like they're kind of vents from the picture. It does look like they have the basic, like, 12, 6, 9, and 3 o'clock mounting positions, just up, down, left, right, but I don't know if it has the modularity of the key mod is the thing.
I mean, I do like that they're releasing it as a free license, so they clearly want, other manufacturers to take advantage of this. I think one advantage this does have over Keymod is Keymod has the tendency when the screws loosen, which, under recoil or under heavy use they can do unless you Loctite them seriously. But when the screws loosen on this, it'll rattle back and forth, but it won't want to slide back and out.
Yeah, potentially. Before we move on too far, the part where Magpul has these as a free license platform, Keymod started out specifically basically being for Noveski, and then they eventually just published it to public domain, so anybody can make a keymod rail now.
Yeah, now,
Yep.
Obviously keymod has reached the public domain, but Magpul is starting it out pretty much immediately as public domain.
Yeah, they're learning from keymod's mistakes, pretty much.
And I do think there is potential for the M-Lok, if it's implemented well, to address some of the weaknesses of keymod, which is, the potential for it to back out and, then rattle and, obviously, like I said, just back out into the open space and then fall. I mean, I haven't run into that. I don't know anyone who's run into it, but it's a design concern that some people bring up. And obviously, it looks like M-Lok does not have that problem.
Well, can the keymods back out, or would they have to slide forward? Okay, no, they back out, yeah. Okay.
So here's an example. Let's say you're using a vertical foregrip mounted on a keymod section. And a lot of keymod sections have little tabs on the front and back that will lock into the adjacent keymods and keep it from sliding back and forth in theory. But let's say you're using a foregrip and it starts to get loose, and I don't know, maybe for some reason you don't notice it, but you probably will. Or maybe you're in a situation where you notice it, but you can't do anything about it. Well, if you're applying rearward pressure on that foregrip, let's say you're pulling it into your shoulder. I don't know how some people would want to do that. But let's say you're doing that, your foregrip could potentially slide backwards if it rattles, the tabs out of place.
Or if you're using one on an airsoft gun, you happen to tap into cover and you slam your foregrip on some cover and it knocks it loose.
Or your barrel, as people are tending.
Yeah. And that's the weakness of keymod, I see, is that you do have it where you can just push that back like a fraction of an inch.
I wonder why they don't do it side to side. Like, vertical. I won't say vertical, but instead of that back, you have to slide it back to come out. Why not, like, to the left or to the right? Because that's not an impulse that most people are going to do.
The issue with that I see...
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But I think it's more for spatial reasoning. They would have had to make the whole system a lot bigger if they did these key slots facing
the other issue I see is how do you stabilize it then if you don't have other areas forward and back? Like I said, you've got the tabs with keymod. Like I said, on most keymod accessories, sliding back as it loosens should not be an issue in theory, but it's a possible concern that has been raised, especially with some of the cheaper accessories that don't offer those tabs.
Well, hell, if you're using cheaper accessories, you should be prepared for the break anyway.
That is true.
So, but yeah, I guess the M-Lok does have that above keymod where the thing isn't going to fall out
totally
just by moving a little bit.
Like, oh, well, I mean...
Yeah, unless like you didn't tighten it and Loctite it and everything, and you went to the range and the screw started to come out, you're not going to actually dump your accessory. It could still slide around, but sliding around is preferable to falling. So, but I don't know. I mean, I probably, unless I hear a lot more about the M-Lok being really successful, I would probably just stick with the keymod myself.
Because there's so many more accessories.
Yeah, and it's going to take a little while for the M-Lok to get supported, I think, and most of the support is going to be from Magpul.
Throwing its weight around with it, I think a lot of people will be prone to jump with it.
Well, that's true. A lot of people are just going to buy it because it says Magpul on the side and it matches their stock and their magazines and their grip and their receiver if they're that big of a fanboy with it.
And don't get me wrong, I love Magpul, but I don't know. I'll have to wait and see how the aftermarket goes because the aftermarket for keymod is huge right now. I mean, even Magpul, if I recall correctly, has some keymod accessories out.
Yeah, they do.
That would make sense since Magpul that was the first. Well, aside from KAC's attempt at that.
Mm-hmm. I've just personally always kind of viewed Magpul as like a more of a fashion company than like a innovative company because like they have their theory lines like the AFG, but it's just I don't know. They haven't really done anything unique that no one else has done before from what I've seen. Like, a lot of people like to mention the friction lock, but other stocks have done that.
But the thing with Magpul that I would argue sets them apart is that they bring to market a really good product. I mean, whether or not Magpul does anything unique, they do make a good product. And that's the thing.
At a decent price.
They are competitive right now because they bring to the market a good product at a good price, and like it or not, form factor is a huge part of marketing. And I like Magpul because of their form factor, and their ergonomics are good, and it looks good. And you can argue whether or not that should make your decision, but the fact that it comes with that and at a good product and at a good price is why they're competitive and why they're huge.
Any last thoughts on the M-Lok?
I mean, I guess my last thought on the M-Lok would be, it's interesting. I guess we'll see where it goes. I'm waiting on the aftermarket to see if it drops key mod.
Pretty much same here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all dependent on that aftermarket.
I like Riz rails.
You know what I like that's underrated is the Centurion system.
I
Wood?
like dovetail rails.
Yeah, but the Centurion system is so simple. It literally just screws into segments on the rails. Like, I don't know why that ever went out of fashion.
I'm trying to figure out what exactly you mean.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's where it's
I
literally
see what
just
it is
threaded
now, yeah.
holes in the rail system, and you just screw rail segments onto it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not complicated enough. Pretty much what
I
it
would
is.
venture to say that is what spawned the M-Lok and...
I know, but I guess I don't see why it needed to be overcomplicated. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like key mod because it is really, really, really lightweight when nothing is mounted to it or when very little is mounted to it. But I guess I don't see why the threaded holes ever went out of fashion. Actually, wait. I know what it might be. Key mod and M-Lok, you can replace the hardware if it strips out. If you strip out one hole on a Centurion or other fixed threaded hole system, then that's just useless.
One could say you're then screwed.
314 Atlas. What's the deal with 314 Atlas?
Okay.
What's the deal with airline
Atlas. Okay, so it came out recently that a hobbyist gunsmith had come out with an ammunition that is also a self-contained barrel, and it's a short rifled barrel, and it's just a 314 cartridge with a primer and some gunpowder, and the cartridge itself is a relatively thick piece of steel, as far as casings
Yeah, it
go.
almost looks like a 32 casing, but it's just super thick.
Yes, and it acts as its own barrel.
That's quite interesting.
weird.
I'm looking at the gun that it was designed for. I think I saw the CEO, or whatever you want to call him, of Defense Distributed shooting one of these in a video, and it was like, plastic
Yeah, it's
guns
the
are
Liberator.
real. Whoa. Brain exploding.
The only issue is that plastic barrels tend to
Yeah.
explode.
So it's like that High Point video.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. That thing that I've seen. Anyway, so the plans for the 314 are...
It's the one with the High Point making fun of salient arms.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting idea. It's obviously pretty impractical.
Yeah, this is obviously a single shot pistol. If they ever made a revolving forend for it, it would not be horrible. It'd be about on par with any snub-nose revolver.
Well, not really, because my issue is it's literally a 1-inch barrel firing a 314 cartridge, 314 bullet. So my question is, what are the ballistics like?
Well, I
on
mean,
that?
you say that, like, obviously since it actually shoots bearings and not bullets, it's not incredibly accurate just by design. But a 1-inch barrel, it's like there are snub-nose revolvers that have barrels shorter than an inch.
But they're also firing something like 38 special or even, some of them are like 357 Magnum, but those are going more like.
Well, I mean, assuming that they were both manufactured like bullets, because this is obviously like a pre-production kind of concept that I'm looking at, where they're just basically cast musket balls. But let's say this was firing something that was a very precisely cast bullet. How much is the 314 different from a 32?
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I've just I've been kind of reading too many gun forums, because I wouldn't trust a 32, but I'm also, a mongoloid who could probably get away with carrying a full-size 45.
And I mean, when you're shooting a snub-nosed revolver, like, unless it's a really high-end one, you're not gonna get a whole lot of accuracy out of it. This whole plastic gun thing, this is just basically to kind of show to the government, look, you can't push us around Tea Party constitutionalism and so on and so forth. It's not a practical like combat weapon. You're not going to say, hey government, I'm going to fight soldiers in the street with this thing that has disposable barrels built into the bullet and only fires one round at a time.
Well, that's the other issue too. It's going to be
Yes, it
expensive.
is.
Because you literally have to have a precision machined barrel with the cartridge, and you have to either reload it or toss it, and it's going to be expensive.
Well, I do want to
make.
say that I don't think they're really precision manufactured. This guy made them on a lathe.
Well, no, but I mean, if you want to get any kind of performance out of it other than just, for plinking, which, to be fair, this probably is mostly for plinking. The 3D gun market, the 3D printed gun market these days is mostly just plinkers and hobbyists.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, I mean, there's also the guys who are, trying to 3D print firearms just to, as a statement. But I'd say a lot of people, like the guy who made this cartridge, he asserts that there was no political motivation. He's just a gun guy, and he wanted to answer a problem with 3D printed guns.
Yeah, I mean, I am absolutely just biased with this because my first exposure to 3D printed guns was Defense Distributed. And his whole mission statement is, fuck you, U.S. government. So.
Well, yeah, but if you look beyond Defense Distributed, I would argue people like Defense Distributed are the vocal minority.
I'm sure. Like, the idea of actually being able to print out an AR-15 at your home, if you've paid for, the right to the design and everything, and you have the materials and all that, that's much, much more simple and easy than just going out to a gun store and going and buying one. Especially if you were going to be arguing like, oh, this is to make a legal alternative where you still register the firearm, then, you can fill out the firearm registration paperwork on your computer. So it kind of cuts out the middleman of the gun store, and you're just directly downloading the design from the manufacturer.
Well, but the thing is, with the way that firearm law is written right now, as long as you're manufacturing a legal firearm, you can manufacture your own firearm without any registration and without any form of background check.
I can't speak for...
I mean, it's only illegal if you can't
I can't
do it.
speak for all states, but zip gun manufacturing, at least in Washington, is legal as long as you're not intending to sell them.
Yeah, then you need an FFL.
And you need to be having people do background checks now because 594.
Yes. Well, yeah. And because if you have an FFL, then you would probably be a dealer. So that obviously the legal ramifications are going to vary from state to state. In New York State, you pretty much can't make anything because we suck. And to be fair, I wouldn't trust myself to 3D print a firearm because I'm a bit of an idiot with certain things, and I like things to be simple, and I would probably rush the process, take it out, being all excited, and blow my damn hand off.
Well,
like
the thing
an
is,
idiot.
like, with firearms and knives and stuff, you seem to kind of have more of a refined taste for it, so I don't think you'd be very happy with a 3D printed gun anyway.
But you're also saying this to the guy who owns a Mossberg and an AK.
Your AK's a Saiga.
Well, yeah,
that doesn't count.
Yeah, but it's still not
And
like,
Mossberg's
a crazy precision high-end
Yeah,
gun.
it's true. But it's in the AK world, it's kind of one of the higher end ones that you could have gotten.
Well, it's the highest end one I could get in New York.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, it would be cool, like, if I made my own gun. I would probably just have to be really, really sure that the technology is reliable at that point, and I don't trust myself to do the tweaking necessary to make it reliable.
Yeah,
right
just because you've actually printed one of these doesn't mean it's actually a functional firearm. You still have to do a lot of filing and sanding and fitting and stuff like that. It's a whole manufacturing process. You're printing out the big parts. That's about it.
Yeah. I'm also way too much of a mall ninja to give up the ability to do semi-auto. Or even pump action. Like, if they made like some that were pump action or semi-auto, that'd be
pump
cool,
action is easy to make with something
right
like this. You just gotta make it longer, and actually that could kind of account for barrels too. Just imagine having this disposable single shot barrel that contains your bullet, and it's like 3 feet long.
Oh my
and it's
God,
got a pump on
ridiculous.
it and everything to cycle the barrel out and get it into your offhand when it's been fired. It's just
Yeah.
they have to come up with something
I've been
else for
saying,
that design.
Yeah. I've been saying for a while that I think, like, as CNC technology, because it is going to get cheaper, as CNC technology gets cheaper and easier to do, that'll probably be where 3D printing becomes interesting, because then you'll basically have CNC machines.
Yeah, CNC actually has made large strides toward getting much cheaper, like to the point where an average person could have one in their garage. Just in the past few years, you can go to Harbor Freight and you can get they call it a mini mill. It's a electronic mill. It's manually driven and all that stuff, but it costs around $500. And then you can get a kit that adds servos to the X, Y, and Z axes. And that kit is about, I think that's another $500. And then it has an interface for your computer, and it comes with AutoCAD and stuff like that. And you effectively have a 3D printer right there. Or not a 3D printer, sorry, a CNC mill. And you can finish AR-15 receivers with that and everything. And if you get a billet and you have the right designs, you can make it out of a billet of aluminum, just right there in your garage.
And there's a lot of knife makers, to bring it back to, obviously where I've seen it most. There's a lot of knife makers who basically have their shop in their garage because, I mean, they're not like crazy cheap, but they're affordable enough that knife makers can buy them and program them to make whatever, handles and whatnot. Like Grant and Gavin Hawk literally just have their shop in a barn, and it's just got some CNC machines.
I've been hearing from a lot of people that like CNC manufacturing for knives is really undesirable for customs.
It is to some people, and it depends on the price point. The Grimsmo Norseman is almost entirely CNC milled, including the grinds. And the Grimsmo Norseman is really popular because it comes in at a pretty good price point for, a mid-tech or a custom knife. Like, they call them machine custom. And those come in like $500 to $600, which, I mean, is not cheap.
Yeah,
certainly. But for the custom touches you can still get with them, and for the fact that it is just two guys doing it, even if it is, mostly machine, there's still a lot of fitting, the anodization and stuff like that. So the Grimsmo Norseman has been really popular.
I just think what a lot of people really have in mind when they contact a custom knife maker to make something for them is, okay, I'm probably going to pay this guy around $1,000 to make this design that I drew. We're going to be talking about it each step of the way, and he's going to be making
that's a
it with
full
his own
custom.
hands.
Well, there's different... Okay, this is where it gets weird, because there's different steps of custom knives. Like, the lowest end would be like a customized production knife. Like, it's a production knife, someone bought it, and then they anodized it or redid the handles or did new scales, reground the blade, something like that. Then there's mid-techs. And mid-techs are where they outsource the parts. They have them water jetted, or they have them ground, or they have some of the non-specialized labor done out of house. Then they bring it in and they do the fitting and the finishing themselves. That's a mid-tech, like my Andre de Villiers Butcher. Then you would have a machine custom, like a Grimsmo Norseman, or in many ways a Curtis F3, because Curtis obviously owns the water jets, and he does his own grinding by hand, but he has the parts water jetted, and he does that himself, and that would be something like a machined custom. And that's where, there's still a lot of handwork involved, but it's with machines. And then you have a bench custom, which is where it's the maker made it according to his design, the maker made it according to what he was using on this knife, and it's just a knife he made. Maybe a customer spec'd out what materials he wanted, but it's their design, you know, their thing. That's a bench knife. Used to be called a bench-made knife, but then a certain manufacturer appropriated that.
Yeah, CRKT,
Bob
right?
Lovelace was considered a bench... Yeah. Bob Lovelace was considered a bench maker. And I guess you would call like Curtis these days, except for some of his custom mortar. Well, even then, you know, he's a bench maker. And then you have full customs, which would be like my Alan Davis, where the maker and the customer collaborate to create a one-off unique
Yeah, and
knife.
I think that would probably be the most desired type of custom, like depending on what your budget allows, of course.
Well, and full customs aren't even that crazy expensive if you find the right maker. I mean, my Alan Davis L-Max flipper, that was my design. You know, I spec'd out the materials. It's an L-Max blade, carved titanium handles, file work on the spine, bearing system pivot. That ran me $450.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. And like you were saying earlier, that CNC knife, that is around $500. So,
yeah. And I mean, the Alan Davis is from not a crazy well-known maker. He's very popular, actually, but like, he's not, you know, he hasn't, you know, achieved like tons of prestige, tons of attention in the mainstream. But he's a very good knife maker, and you know, I definitely got what I paid for. And that's the thing, is a lot of what goes into knife collecting is very much about what's hot right now. Like Will Moon, Brian Ty, Frank Fisher, guys who have achieved, Mike Snowdy, guys who have achieved a lot of recognition. Their pieces tend to be the more coveted, and their pieces tend to be, you know, more expensive. With the exception of Brian Ty, because Brian Ty, who I think would also call himself like a machine custom maker, Brian Ty still prices his knives not all that expensive for the fact that he is an industry-renowned innovator, and his knives are very much in demand.
Do you remember the name of that maker that
so
I
that's
linked
cool.
to a little while ago, who had that, it was a really, really high-quality flipper knife?
Oh, shit. Oh, man, I totally don't remember.
Yeah, it's I know he's a really important guy in the industry. Like, everybody knows his name. It's just, I don't, so I forgot it. But,
I totally forgot it too. Like, you just popped it out of me on the blue. I'll probably remember it later and be pissed at myself.
It was this really intricately made knife. It was his own design, but his customers spec'd out what materials they wanted. And because this guy's such a big figure in the industry, that's about a $5,000 knife. Like, it gets pretty crazy.
Yeah, and you get guys like Todd Fisher and Frank Fisher. I forget, one of them's father, one of them's son. But both of those guys are such big deals in the industry that their knives go for $3,000 or $4,000. And then you have Gustavo Cecchini, R.J. Martin. You know, you have guys like that who their pieces demand thousands.
Yeah, it's like
dollars.
the difference between a tool and a piece of art, basically.
Well, and I'm weird in that I view that any knife can be a piece of art, depending on what it is.
Of course. But I mean, like ones that you look at them and.
Oh yeah, like ones that you would
ones
display,
you look at and you're like,
would
this should
put
be in
up
a glass case instead of my pocket, you know? Like gems inlaid, they have a grip material that costs $2,000, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they melt down gold to sign their name in. Like, that was what you were saying
he
about
had
that.
a,
Like, God, I wish
he had
I
a little
could remember
24
his name.
karat piece of gold that he had inside the grip where you couldn't even see it unless you had the knife open and you were looking in with a flashlight, and that's where he engraved his signature. That's just such a cool little detail in my mind. I think that was really cool.
It is.
Okay, so since we're talking about knives, you wanted to talk about appropriate knife use and then some interesting kind of knife cuts. So why don't you start us off on that?
Oh, okay, because what got me thinking about this was, and, you know, Rick should be able to comment on this at least a little bit, like, because the thing with it is, I've been because I bought a Grayman Satu just recently, and it's one of those ridiculous hard use overbuilt knives craziness, and it's ridiculous, and it's supposed to bridge the gap, allegedly, between like a fixed blade and a folder. But it got me thinking. I'm like, at what point are you expecting a knife to do too much? Like when you're seriously thinking about doing heavy prying with a folding knife, you're using the wrong tool.
Yeah, it's kind of like the idea of like a serrated, like a fully serrated pocket knife. Like the Spyderco Civilian is one of them. It's fully serrated, and E-House, you probably know what it looks like, but I don't know if you other guys know what it looks like. So here's a link to it. But yeah, it's obviously made for cutting, but it's like at that point, why wouldn't you just bring like a hacksaw or something?
Yeah, that's
okay. The Spyderco Civilian has an interesting story behind it. That was a knife made by Spyderco in response to an order from some law enforcement agencies for a backup defensive knife for undercover agents. And the serrated edge is literally just for cutting through clothing, pretty much.
Really? Yeah, because I guess you wouldn't need to keep a serrated edge like sharp like you would with a straight edge, pretty much.
Yes. And that's why Ernest Emerson is also a fan of partially serrated edges, because they tend to cut fibrous materials better even without being sharpened up.
Yeah, I guess that just kind of goes to a like POU, like, you know, philosophy of use thing to get all nut and fancy on you guys. Sorry about that. Like with a pocket knife like this, I think like, what is the tool aspect of this? What am I going to use this for? Like carving? Am I going to be cutting branches with this? Because in my mind, a knife is just a tool. It's not really a defensive weapon. And I know it can be used as a defensive weapon quite effectively if you know what you're doing. It just doesn't pop into my head like that instantly.
Well, and that's the thing. Like the Spyderco Civilian was mostly designed for that purpose, which is why it has that particular design. But that's a thing that is with the Spyderco Civilian. It is a purpose-built tool. So even though it's, you know, a folding knife, it does, for people who know what they're doing, have the purpose-built, you know, behind it. And that's the thing with the folding knife design. The folding knife design is designed to be, you know, the tool you have on you at all times. And I guess that's where the hard use thing comes from, because I guess the idea is that if your tool is overbuilt, then in an emergency, you can use it to pry things. You can use it to, you know, process wood. You can use it for all kinds of ridiculous stuff that you wouldn't normally use, like a Kershaw Skyline.
So since you told the story of this device's inception, I'm kind of wondering, like, did they just call it the Civilian to just take the piss, or...
I don't know I honestly don't know where it came from.
It's made for undercover police officers, and they're like, let's call it the Civilian. Like, yeah, okay.
That's true.
And so for another example of a weird blade, here's this one right here. It kind of looks like one of those stupid, like, Klingon kind of knives you see in, like, Star Trek or something.
Well, I mean, that's a fantasy
it
knife.
is, but
Yeah, that is most definitely.
but a big part of it,
that's not even.
Yeah, it's not utilitarian at all, and it doesn't even look like it'd be good in a fight. But the description of it is actually kind of funny, because it's this guy who bought it somewhere and he's trying to sell it. This is the description for it: badass killer knife. This thing is huge, like about 8-inch blade. Very sharp and badass looking. Comes with a real leather case. Not cheap crap. Made in America. I really doubt, like, I really doubt that isn't cheap crap, because mostly the Phillips head screw kind of holding the knuckle blade in.
Well, you know what it looks like? It looks like someone took a trench knife and put it through the ringer of a fantasy design.
Yeah, probably. It's probably some, like, orc knife or some shit. I don't know. It always confuses me why people buy these things.
Speaking of confusing why people buy stupid knives like that, Ty and his gun show purchase.
How about
the
Ty and
Riddick
his
knives?
dagger
Yes.
that he carries every day?
Oh, that's a different section. That's in our good designs, bad use.
Yeah, that is definitely a good example of that, because I've handled that. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, fantasy knives are entirely for collectible, you know, by people who are into that kind of stuff. I personally am not into most fantasy blades. That's just my taste. I understand their place. You know, a lot of people just want a wall hanger. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. I didn't notice.
Yeah, wall hanger, cool little conversation piece.
Yes.
So I have like a whole bunch of other kind of ridiculous knife blades here, but I'm gonna link to this one because I've seen this around a lot. So it's obviously Batman inspired. It's a folding knife that opens on both ends and has no discernible method of where you're supposed to grip it. Have any of you guys seen this for sale anywhere?
No, I can't say I've seen that.
I have seen it.
I've
for
seen
sale.
it in a lot of gas stations.
Yeah, I've seen it in a lot of flea market knife shops. I mean, and again, that's trying to reach out to the guy who's like, oh man, it's like a folding batarang. This is cool. It's not supposed to be practical.
Yeah, it's just...
And I guess
What do you
I
mean,
want
man?
to talk
Batman's
about
the most
practicality.
practical of people.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, it's just like... I don't know. It's like I just don't understand what the designers are thinking when they make this. Like, it has to be solely like we're gonna sucker some idiot into buying this because there's no way to hold it properly.
Well, the point is for it to be cool. And people who are not into knives in the same way that, like, you know, people who are collectors or regular users of knives, of like higher end knives are just going to buy the knives that they think are cool. And while I don't think that knife is cool because I think the design has loads of issues, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, well, that's different. You know, that it's kind of like a batarang, but it's, you know, it's very different.
And then even more different and even more engineered for the people who, you know, they just look at it and go, oh, that looks fucking sick.
I have a theory about what you're linking next, but we'll see what happens. I did not expect this one, but it is certainly interesting.
The Draconic Rex.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I don't even know how you use that. Like,
that's more of a statue than
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
That's literally
it's
a
just
statue.
interesting because it has this.
Could you imagine getting robbed?
That's not in the use.
Getting robbed with that.
Pulls it out. Give me your money.
Someone
It's like,
bugs you with
okay,
that.
okay, fuck. Here you go.
It's okay, here you go. You need it
Yeah.
more than I do.
Here's the problem, though. The problem is with the way that those spikes go back toward the user, you could literally just, like, tick the guy's hand and do more damage to him
Yeah,
than
like
you.
if he was holding it limp, like kind of to the side, like middle facing his torso, and you just like kicked it on the side of the dragon head, it just pops up in his face. He's just like, it's in my eye. It's just,
I bet that's something
Yeah.
Ty would use.
yeah.
Aw, why does everyone pick it up? Okay, he earns it, but seriously.
You just have like a little nylon sheath over each
Love
one
you,
of those little
Ty.
blades, and you just have it shoved in his backpack or something. It's like,
Oh,
you need
God.
me to open that letter? Wait a minute, let me pull off this sheath for this blade.
Well, okay, but talking about everyday carry, Rich, you carry the Kershaw Emerson, one of the CQC models, and Rick, you carry a ZT 566 or a Benchmade Griptilian, and Craig, you carry a ZT 350, which is also very sad. I've memorized what every one of you carries, but that happens.
Didn't you give like two of us our knives?
And I recommended Rich his knife, yeah.
Yeah, so you should
You
know.
recommended all of our knives to all of us.
Actually, yes, that's true.
All hail Knife God E-House.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, so all three of you guys carry knives that are kind of like, I mean, not as much the Kershaw Emerson, but still, like, they're kind of heavier duty knives. Like, the ZT 566 is a smaller blade than the ZT 560, its bigger brother, but it is still a steel frame lock designed for heavy use.
Yeah. That's why I carry mine. It's good for anything I need to use it for, more or less.
Yeah.
Stuff that I'll encounter in daily life anyway.
And I guess that's kind of where I was going earlier when I said, well, I guess the idea is that you always have it on you, so it's an emergency thing. So yeah, you know, and I think that's kind of where the hard use fad comes from. Is one, it is cool, like, you know, having a big overbuilt crazy knife like the Grayman Satu is cool.
Yeah. But what's kind of nice about having like a normal design like that is if you need to open a box and you pull out your Grayman Satu, in your head, you know, that is a fucking awesome knife and it's super overbuilt,
but
and I'm
anyone
never
who
going to
looks
do
at
anything
it-
hard enough for this. But like you're saying, if anyone looks at it, they're not going to be like, oh my god, he's going to kill everybody.
Honestly, that effect happens with most folding knives over 3 inches. That's why.
It does.
That's why if I have to use my knife in front of someone, I honestly have a little Swiss Army knife on my keys.
Yeah. I hate those little Swiss Army knives because they always break on me. So if I do need to use my knife in public, I make sure, first off, people who don't need to see it aren't seeing it first. And then second, if I need to open it, this is a spring assist, but I don't just flick it open. I actually grab the blade with my left hand and slowly open it as if it was a normal folder.
Yeah.
Because when people see that assisted spring, they think, oh, that's a switchblade.
Yep.
Like instantly, just uneducated people who don't know much about knives, whatever. And I can't blame them for thinking that. So
speaking of that, I carry my ZT at work, which technically I'm not supposed to do because we have our dinky, crappy box knives that we're supposed to use. But I still have it anyway. Well, I pulled it out the other morning, and as soon as I flicked it and heard the click of it locking up, the manager walked around the corner of where I was standing, and I just kind of sat there and just went, well, too late now, and kept going.
Yeah.
But I was like, well...
When I was a security guard, it was amazing because we were given OC and we were taught basic self-defense tactics, and that's all we had. We were uniformed security guards walking around a place that, on average, had about 10,000 people going through it every day. And it was
so by
1 mile
that, you
perimeter
mean you
campus.
were told to run away.
Yes, exactly. And, like, every security guard knows an active shooter is probably never going to happen while you're a security guard. But in the instance it does, OC isn't going to help. Running is going to be pretty much your only source of defense. Yeah. And the natural kind of thought to that is, okay, well, if I'm close enough, if I have a pocket knife or I can at least tackle the guy, that will do something. So you kind of think, okay, maybe I should carry a pocket knife. Well, if you're unarmed security, legally you're not supposed to carry one, at least in Washington State. So even if it's a small, dinky little, like, Victorinox Swiss Army knife, right? And you have that specifically for opening boxes, you can't carry a knife around. But because I got paid $11 an hour and that wasn't worth my life, I decided, okay, I'm gonna carry a pocket knife on me. And I remember the first time that the director of security saw me pull out that knife because I was opening a box, like, I almost shit myself. Because I was just like, oh, fuck, this is actually illegal. And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, is that a SOG? I was like, yeah. He's like, huh, okay. He just walks away. And I'm like, okay, he doesn't care. Good.
Well, I had an interesting thing with college because at my college, I asked a couple security guards because, I had started carrying a knife, during college, basically during one of the summers at college. And I asked a couple of the security guards, and none of them cared. They deferred to state law for pocket knives because obviously with the on-campus apartments, they had to allow kitchen knives on campus. Mm-hmm. And in terms of pocket knives, basically, they just said, yeah, as long as it's legal, then we don't care. And there were a lot of times where, I would be at an event and I would be using my knife for something because I helped run a club. And I actually ran a gaming club, and for some of the stuff we would do, we had to cut wires to splice wires together for displays, or we had to open boxes. And a lot of people, a lot of security guards would happen to walk by, on the regular patrol, look around, see me waving around a Spyderco Paramilitary 2 or something like that, and wouldn't care because it's kind of weird. Like some places really have this attitude of, yeah, we don't care.
Yeah, and to use another example from when I was a guard, technically, the, like mall rules and regulations, the mall office didn't want people carrying firearms inside the mall. But, I mean, are you going to walk up to a guy and say, hey, you can't have a gun in here, put it out in your car or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're probably not going to. So what we always did was
my concealed carry.
Yeah, well, these would be people who'd open carry, like, oh, I'm in America, I'm going to abuse my rights because I'm American and shit like that.
Well, yeah.
So what we ended up doing was we just walk up to these people and we say, like, hey, man, so we know it's America. You can open carry a firearm. That's totally fine. You're in a public place with a lot of people who don't know a lot about guns or gun laws. All we ask is that you untuck your shirt and put your shirt around it or something. In any way you're comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with it, we'd like you to put it in your car, but we're authorizing you to conceal carry on our property. That's all we do. And at least in Washington, if you're on private property and
That's
you have
kinda cool,
permission
actually.
of the property owner to conceal carry, you can. So
That's kind of cool, actually.
yeah, we would just try to stay like really chill, especially with the people who have guns. And I'm not saying anybody who carries a gun is a fucking maniac or anything, but like I said, it's a place where
Well, you
there's
never know.
10,000. Yeah, exactly. It's a place
Yeah.
where there's 10,000 plus people walking through this building all the time, and honestly, every active shooter had a gun on him. So it's a possible likelihood that somebody who has a gun might be an active shooter. It's just a thing you got to keep in mind in that situation.
Yeah.
So
I mean, is it likely? No, but if you're a
No, not at
security
all.
guard and you're approaching the guy, you're saying, listen, we want to, make sure things are, in the clear here. You just be polite, and that's good for everybody, and especially you do have to approach it cautiously because you don't know this guy.
yeah, and if they do end up being cool, which 99.9% of the time they were, then you have a responsible American concealed carrying a firearm in a populated place, and he's on good terms with the security. So if something bad happens, we probably have someone who can help us in that instance.
Yeah. So I mean,
So-
and you haven't offended anybody with that, as long as they're not dickhole. I mean, you have that
Yeah, I mean-
possibility too.
Like the people who go out on the street with a camera and they conceal carry a rifle, or they open carry a rifle on their back just to
Yeah.
get police to talk to them.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, no one's going to go into a mall and do that with security guards.
Yeah.
But you never know, honestly. People just have such little stuff to do nowadays that anything's possible.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, well, we're kind of out of topics. So does anyone have anything else that they would like to talk about?
Stay tuned for a special
No.
guest in the future.
Yeah.
We found a YouTuber who's a pretty interesting guy, and our podcast isn't very popular, but neither is this guy. So we thought we would collaborate, and we really hope you enjoy talking to him as much as we've enjoyed some of his content that we've seen. He's pretty out there, I won't lie to you, but he's a lot of fun. So look forward to that in episode 4 of the podcast.
Yes. But as for now, it looks like we're all done. So, yes, you want to sign us out?
Peace, bitches.